Okay, hi everyone. It's great to meet you for today. Today, the topic is basically about a very important part of language and culture in in career counseling, which is um, which is the topic of family, the family part. The family part from experience is very important for the person, depending on the culture, age, and everything else. So usually, if you're in university or after, that's not a factor as much as before. Before, it is a factor when you are in high school. Obviously, middle school is even more. It depends on your objective. So, for example, if you are in middle school, okay, then you have to, if you want to travel, obviously, or if you want to go to an internship or anything else, obviously you have to take permission from your parents. They have to know, and basically usually they would know, right? So and then you get the signature and everything. In high school, not necessarily I believe it is the signature until you graduate. It depends on the school. I think the last year of school, it goes back to environment and culture. So it may not be. It may be from 10th grade that there's no signature. It's you. It may be from ninth grade, which is important. Sometimes even eighth grade. Okay. So, because they respect the person that he's independent or she is independent, and besides the fact if it's your parents or your godmother or godfather or foster parents or whatever, or one responsible of you, but in the end, it's a different approach. Okay, it depends on the school. Some schools know until graduation. Other schools know. Okay, so no, I'm talking to you. You're in ninth grade right now. um, you know, they talk to you. Obviously, it's different than if there's a problem or, in the end, okay, in the end, in the end, we talk to the mother or father, and it's through the student, right? Middle school, actually, in middle school, I believe everything has to be through the student. I think even from elementary school, okay, except if, if it's different, obviously, everything is through the student in today's world. You're not behind, people behind the back. Um, So, so in that sense, you have that. Okay, this factor of punishment is really important in family for a determinant of the success in such a broad world for this person. It may not be a broad world, it's life, which is great, and there may be punishment. However, it depends on the family and the culture. Unfortunately, sometimes it is broad and hard or stressful, or broad and highly exciting to the degree that the excitement blinds the person. So, but that in excitement, it's not usually the case. Um, it may be, right? You're over excited, and so because you are over excited, what happens is that um, because you're overexcited, basically, um, uh, what happens is basically that um, you uh, you know you don't see the other opportunities, or you don't see maybe things that um, uh, you don't see maybe things that are uh, things that may come up, maybe negative, I guess. Okay, because you are not aware um, for different things. Okay, punishment is so like I said, it depends. Sometimes punishment does not show uh, in a person because of different reasons. It's other things. Okay, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does show to degree that it's unsuccessful for the person. Now, here we're talking in general, right? In general, in the world, it's very broad and there are indefinite variables. It may be a factor in the family. However, it may be there are other things that make up for it. It may be when they were growing up and then afterwards the parents changed their approach for different reasons. It may be afterwards. It's sometimes the characteristic of the person. Okay. It may be that it may be that the person is is in a family that there is punishment, however, it doesn't affect him or her, or they don't like to share it. Now, if they don't like to share it, it's even worse for you and for the student because it's nice to be clear. Obviously, if you're comfortable and everything else, if you're not comfortable, then it's a different factor, it's a different case. It may be add even more negative, right? So for different cultural reasons. Anyways, when in high school, one of the things that the school institution, especially the ones I talked about, obviously given that you are there, there's a signature that is, usually students are very successful. However, except if it's really bad at home from a punishment or other factors, right? Or not necessarily for different reasons. Some characters they are very successful. Okay, so in a school they have punishment at home, they have other things, maybe negative or positive, and they are very okay. It might be a negative. Okay, it might be a negative, and it might be other things. Okay, so others no, not necessarily. Others, obviously, it's a drawback. Okay, so maybe usually when there's punishment, usually as an average, uh, punishment in the sense of here obviously domestic abuse is included in everything else, but also when you're in high school, maybe punishment that they're not accepting a system of not having kids or which is really bad, right? For this student for career, you just think of yourself. Really, it's you. Okay, that's the beginning, right? Maybe because you're married or you have children, but if you are, you shouldn't think of your parents. That's wrong. In today's world, the career world is not designed for you to think of your parents. Your parents, the family is designed for the parents to be responsible until a certain age. Even that responsibility is in question in the sense of this culture of punishment. In another culture is different, right? They're responsible because there's no punishment, right? There's no punishment. Okay, that is part of responsibility. That's part of everything. Okay, so anyways, it's a given, especially for environment. Great, and even that language is not used. It's just like even more, right? So anyways, depends on the cultural environment, but you're not supposed to. You're in a career. You're supposed to think of your spouse, not your mom and dad or your grandparents or even your siblings, right? No, don't think of or friends or best friends. No, okay. You only think of your spouse and kids. Even with that, you know, there are some companies and cultures they don't even ask about, but in today's world, the family is designed as such. However, it's not necessarily okay. I don't know. It depends, right? But it's very important because this is a vital part of um, of the um, of the whole world of culture and language and career. So when you when you are in that world, okay. So in career, this is really important. Um, the 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 language and culture is important here as a career counselor, and if you're interested, obviously in this world, to know that um, obviously it does make a big difference. Okay, when you find this person is kind of unindependent, that means there was a factor, and usually there is a punishment. Okay, and it was late. It may be that it was really bad and it stopped suddenly. Okay, or it stopped. Um, it stopped in the age of maybe for the person, it was great, and it stopped maybe it stopped in sixth grade because it finished the school system and the environment, the friends, and everything else. Okay, and that's great. Okay, and as a counselor, you don't even see it. It may come the talk, you don't even see it. Okay, because if now she's in 12th grade, I don't know, how is your relationship with your family? It just comes up maybe because the person doesn't like tests or not. Um, likes this kind of university environment because it's closer to him. Maybe it's for different reasons when he was growing up, he sees it the other universities, stuff like that. I don't know. Okay, whatever reason. Okay, so because it does play a factor, your childhood, if there was punishment, obviously from punishment there and other factors. What university you choose, what work you choose, what field, it does play a factor with um, what is the role of what's the role of everything that you can imagine in your life to go into this career, especially when you go to your library or you research or ask questions to counselor or you just have a talk. It's nice just to reflect and know sometimes maybe why. Okay, so maybe the counselor will tell you, well, there are better options. Now, usually, the counselor, you know, uh, you discourse with the counselor, talk, and maybe they tell you better options. That's great. Okay, but usually, if the person is not good or bad, right? I mentioned, but usually learning culture, if the person is highly independent, you don't really talk about which university, but the university is only just go to the next step. But that's not a label, by the way, at all. Um, it it may be actually an advantage. The person is highly open and the different factors wants to organize in his head. It's not like a negative, okay? It's not like a negative, which is important. Career counseling is not that you have an issue. Should I reiterate here? I I stress these points because these points are really important. Here, you're not uh, you don't have an issue. Here, it's for peer counseling. You're discussing. You can see it organized and discussing. So many people believe is you have an issue or problem. Not necessarily. This is wrong if you go to counselor and the environment, the ambiance, or there's stigma, basically. No, no, no. In some schools, I believe, no, actually, in schools, you don't have to, not mandatory, that's wrong. Or, but, or in institutions, but you like see it as a library. Okay, you obviously don't have an issue with library. On the contrary, you are developing, you are gaining, you're gaining knowledge. It's like you're taking a course. It's like you're reading. You have a discussion with your counselor. Maybe you want to maybe you want to know more about different things. Okay, it's not that you have an issue or you have a problem in this case. In this culture and language, it's really important. Okay, if you go to a counselor and you're like in high school, guess what? I have a problem. That's different. That's great. If your counselor knows what to do the next steps, it may not be him or her, by the way. Sometimes they refer you to another person or another one for the situation. Okay. Maybe you're not accepting the university you want and you do. That's great. Okay. That's not like which is normal. Okay. I want this university. What should I do? Okay. And so forth. Okay, so or maybe it goes back to punishment. My family's not accepting. And it may be a big problem to agree that the career counselor can refer you and your family to a family therapist. Okay, may not be. Maybe just something that, that may be simple or complicated, but doesn't need a family therapist. Okay, so this is really important. Okay, keeping it simple and nice, obviously, but there's no problem to keep it nice. It's a different world. It's very different. Okay. So here I'm talking that the student and the family, they're the ones who came and they have a problem. But in average career counseling, you don't have a problem. It just you go with like library, you go and you you know you ask, you get to read, know, ask questions, discuss different things. Maybe you want to travel, maybe you want to go to internship, maybe you want to know more information about yourself or uh, about your character. Take a nice assessment, have fun with it. Okay. Um, uh, uh, maybe maybe you want to have fun with it. Maybe you want to know more about universities that are possible to even think about, budget wise, curriculum wise, grade wise, culture wise. Um, Maybe you want opportunity you never thought of before you can have. Okay, in that sense. Maybe you're scared. You don't want to take risks. You have a problem. Like problem like normal. Okay, guess what? Tell your family. Maybe it's expensive. The university. I want the same university. What other options is the same level of university and the same options I have? That's good. Or library. Okay. So this is really important. Um, so you need to you need to keep that in mind. For the counseling in general, what's important to know is number one, it's not stigma, it's just an average kind of like going library counseling that's really, really simple and nice, and you take the direction basically. And that's why to be successful in such like it's like a library, okay, obviously the factor of punishment is that it's better if you're in an environment obviously that is there's no kind of punishment in the sense of it makes you independent or it's that you have a kind of idea of the world from people above or freer or you have to do everything social mingling or alone or whatever. There are a lot of social mingling that are not like that and a lot of alone that are not like that, a lot of just normal characters, right? um Here obviously we're not a perfect world, but this is important fact, and this has to do with language and culture to understand yourself in the sense of it might not be an issue obviously. By the way, there are red flags from the beginning. it, it, there are adventures for every family, and just adds up, and okay. So and also goes back to the school environment. It may be that you have a culture that's amazing. There's no fear in that culture. Okay, there's no fear in that culture. However, because because your school environment has fear in it, then it's a problem. Okay, it's maybe the school environment is the one that's detrimental for you, not the family environment, which is a problem. So maybe you should change the school, have a better school. Okay, but wait a second. Is it important for you to have your friends and your culture? Maybe you won't used to get to the new school. Do you think that would be a factor, for example? Okay, you have to always put the factors out because language and culture, there are different things that make up in this world, right? So it may be that your future is amazing. They want it. It may be that they are like that and they go and it's a disaster. It may be not. It may be that they want that and they go and they get it. Okay, and they're successful. So you just want to make sure that you're on the right track. The same thing here in high school. Maybe the school wants to transition. Okay, um, from being signature wise in high school to having independent students in high school. Okay, so no signature and they are under their responsibility. Obviously, it's not easy. Maybe in a 5-year program. Okay, maybe not. Maybe they're doing a meeting for the parents in 2 years. Want to change the school to having it more independent. Okay, um, so maybe they want to do some workshops, training for the parents. Okay, um, in that sense. Okay, so this is an important factor because the um, the factor of having for example, a school that supports given this kind of environment makes a big difference, right? So also for the school is more professional. From ninth grade, even eighth grade, even seventh grade, even 10th grade, no signature. Okay, which makes the student responsible, obviously. It's the student's signature. So the student goes to the trip. Now, in many schools, in even high school, they just make sure, okay, that the parents know by the signature if it's a trip, right? If it's in school, obviously, no, it's the student from sixth grade. Even elementary, they start doing, but um, obviously uh, the big decision making or whatever from seventh grade. So seventh grade, obviously, or sixth grade even. Okay, so in many schools, they're given the parents they don't even think about this, which is normal. Finish from elementary. Okay, and that's because it makes the student obviously strong and everything else, and the student is independent and non-dependent, and they face the real world early, so they are strong in the future. It's not like they go to university, like I said before, and they're in a shock. So that's why schools usually they are obviously if they're really strong. And one of the determinants, even in cultures that have punishment and everything else, is that they are obviously there's a big difference between cultures that average. There's no punishment and different things. Maybe they have problems, obviously, and then you have the punishment. Okay. Okay, so this is an important factor in middle school and high school. Okay. Where is um where is high school here? Um, so here, high school obviously differs, right? Like we said, the school environment and the parents and everything else. What if in high school, the school is great at every grade, but for some reason, the parents became suddenly over. That may be the case. Um, when the student, which is not very, the student was, the parents were not there. No, it's not. He's in a culture where he's independent, but he's a boy, and they became overprotective for going uh, uh, to a for going to a university in to a university, for example, in a place abroad, and they became overprotective, which means that uh, they want uh, they don't want the student their son accepting that university, or they have for some reason their own premises or their own reasons for not going, in the sense of they are scared. They're scared. Overprotectivity comes from fear and there's punishment, or they're scared for their future. They're scared for different factors. Okay, in that sense. Okay. So in that sense, where here obviously for being overprotective suddenly is very very bad, because first of all, the student is, we forget, is in the age where he is stressed out, but we don't tell him. And it's not easy. You should remind the family of the time when obviously you were scared and you were right and everything else. Maybe he's a high, I don't know, let's say high GPA or achiever or whatever, high talented, but wants to go into something different than his parents want to go to medical school, and he wants engineering or arts, which is really bad. No, arts, no, and they really wish it art. So it may be, obviously, in a sense, there is a kind of, in the culture, at least, that I live in, or the cultures, there is a kind of fear and debate, especially if family is from a certain kind of high achieving culture, and they are from such one. Okay, they don't have artists, maybe. Okay, which is important. So maybe as a care counselor, you would, if he's really into it, you give the different options and love the options, which is important for you to give, so that it doesn't affect the parents and the student. even if you're with the parents or the student opposite, challenging art programs in the world that makes the student really successful in art and doesn't make him lose or her. Now we're talking about the son, it doesn't make him um, lose the uh, lose this kind of position where he is flexible if he chooses to go back to a challenging medical school or engineering. That's the fear. So basically, you have to make sure in such a case, because there is a kind of influence here, okay? Um, or maybe there's no. It depends on the language culture here. You know, it, so in that sense, okay. This is really important because you as your counselor, making it easier for them to communicate and giving different options. Okay. So what are you scared about? Can you tell your son? Okay. And you want to make sure that the son, obviously, because he decides to start everything else and going to university, and the shock may be important of never that approach happened to him before. So you have to make sure that he is not going through a phase of kind of reacting, right? Or having kind of behavior that may affect his career. Okay. So basically, that's what you have to make sure that this is normal and why they have to explain. In the sense, it's nice for them to feel like he would deteriorate, so that it's a um, it's a clear kind of you know pace between each other. They're clear. There's no miscommunication, so that they don't. You know, you would explain to the son that try not to have an attack behavior or a reaction which you are wholly because they are overprotective, and you would explain to parents you're not wrong, but you have to, maybe you want to give them the border, but what's important here is your future, and you don't want this to affect your future. This is part of life, nothing's perfect. So maybe you just have to communicate everything of why you think art is great for you. How, their fear is that you're high for it now. Maybe that will put you down, basically. Okay. So maybe you won't go into art. Maybe this one is not competitive. Then you would talk to the parents. Parents say, yeah, for sure, and even more. Okay. In a sense, maybe they would do something mixed, or they would do art, but a highly competitive art program. Okay, and the parents are great, maybe, or they need more, or whatever. In that sense, this is really important because many people believe that language and culture do play a role, but they don't focus on these points. These points do exist when they come to you. Does that make sense? So you don't create it. Okay. Like I said, career counseling, there's no stigma or fear or anything else, not being, too many questions in a privacy, right? So in the end, you have the student in high school, the environment is like open, independent, everything else. If no one comes, no one comes. Okay. Um, Maybe you can do workshops, training, which is amazing. Maybe the school develops, and that is great for the students in the end. Um, obviously, you don't want to be an overprotective school, but at the same time, you have the peer library and everything else, which is great, the tools they need. Um, Maybe on the contrary, students are highly motivated and anticipated for all of that. So what's important here is basically you don't push, you have nothing to do, it's like the library or anything else. It's basically, which is important. So if in such a language and culture here, you don't exist. Okay? So when you exist, when you get an email, when you get a call, okay, when the principal wants to make an activity, you as your counselor believe, why don't I just make sure that they're aware of this issue in the school? Okay, great. Maybe actually it's every week, okay, which is not bad, which is not wrong, okay? And it's not wrong if every weekend not lots of show up or lots of up. You do your work or workshop. Maybe some parents do, maybe students, which is great. Okay, so it's not wrong actually. It's not wrong to have parents. Students. It depends on the culture now. If you feel like parents are too much, then that's different. If you feel like the students are too much, then that's different. You know from um, but it's not wrong, or you just leave it, right? You as a counselor, and you know the environment culture. Um, but you just need to know that you don't want to make a big fuss out of it. Um, so it's just important just to be relaxed. And as a great counselor, you are uh, uh, as a counselor, uh, you are highly relaxed um, for different for different things, and actually the school as a whole is highly professional, and it's great. Okay, it may be it's more of a school where you are invited to maybe different majors at the school or different places. I don't know where you can go as a counselor and talk about the school. You're more of a presenter for the school rather than in the career. Now, this is obviously it depends on the school. There's no right or wrong here. Some schools you would have the parents, right? For different reasons, they would talk. Obviously, in a high school, obviously we have a lot of cases, okay, in the sense of it may be problems, not necessarily. Like I said in the end, it may be just the parents want to know more. It may be students, but what's important here is that you focus on, in language and cultural counseling, the factor of independence, basically, rather than punishment and fear, especially if there is such a thing. In the case you're dealing with, if it comes up, then you have to kind of make it uh, make it a factor that um, you can take away from the student or the parents or whatever case you have, and focus on the positive and independence. Also focus on not getting it into the way. So here you want to focus, especially in career, the person should be really, should be really strong, should not have, they're in another world, they're thinking about something, there should not be fear or punishment. That's not what we want, especially that in the workplace, the person is really, usually it's very important for the person to be strong, not to have any kind of weakness, right? So you with work, career, or university for different things, so they don't run into problems. Especially at schools, different universities, different workplaces or internships. So that's why if you have fear at home or punishment, then it's different. You may you two people may have the same role, but each one's is different. Now, like I said, it may not be a factor, but just think about it. Also, if you are in a supervisor that has signature, then you have to have signature or their coach. Like I said, you may advise, or uh, you may propose like for the school, but you should do a lot of research. Would you be responsible? Because you have to know that the transition is not easy. It may not be the case, by the way, but just to make sure as a counselor in the end, you are the counselor, not the principal, not the deputy principal, and not the parents. Or maybe their objectives are different, cultures are different. So for as part of the research as career counselor. Okay, so that's not your role, right? Your role in the end is just you know uh, work or to be in the language. Obviously, it's not great, right? There are better options, but number does it pay off? In the end, number two, are you want to be responsible if something goes wrong, right? Maybe they're still dependent. Maybe, for example, on a trip, you know, It may be because you did this new transition. Maybe you're surprised. There's a big number they want you to tell their parents. Are you going to be responsible? No. Okay, obviously not. So obviously you have to be obviously logical. Okay, does that, but because there are high schools, like I said, from or schools, and they know, or it's normal basically. Okay, there's nothing abnormal. Okay, so it's just yeah, okay, great, or and they get paid to work. Okay. Anyways, this is just for them to get used to the new world, especially by the way, as a counselor, you would know there are many parents that are highly motivated from middle school for their students to be such, for their children to be like that. And maybe because of work, also for them to be successful and everything else, and you would see they're pushing, pushing, pushing for you to have such change. That's something else, right? Great. There's initiative up there. So this is important. Okay, this is really important because this um, this push makes it so much easier for you to make new changes in the school. Obviously, maybe for example, do workshops and training with parents. Do you believe your children are mature enough? Great. Okay, obviously it's not that simple, right? Or maybe there is the space, there is the space. Okay. This is really important. It may be that sometimes if it's small school classes, if it's a big school, it's different, right? So, or just generation wise different. But the classes change. Okay, they're mature. Okay, and um, and they have that kind of maturity. Okay, for different reasons. For example, okay, maybe there are actually they always go to sports and they always have these different trips for the school and it's pretty, finished, right? They're independent. It may not be the case. Like I said, the trip is an exception, and then they think about if they are mature enough not to get this signature. For some parents, common sense. No, I want them to finish this. I don't accept my child for him to get me a signature. I'm not going to sign, and that's a different case. What about segregation? Is that possible? What about no? It's not. It's normal. Okay. And maybe you can do an exception for the parents who follow. No, I don't accept my child except opposite, right? So here's, but anyways, do you see? So you have to open up all these options, okay? Are you up to it? Opposite. If you are up to it, highly, highly want it, okay? Um, in this case, uh, what exactly, um, uh, what exactly do you want from it, right? In the sense of, it's a lot of work and also you don't want it to take up. Now it might not be like it might not be. It's actually a good opportunity for you, right? But it's just that in the sense of think about what's important for you is that um, basically the initiatives and motivations that are happening in the school, you as a counselor are responsible that everything's going smoothly. And in the end, it goes for the student, right? And the advantage of the student not having the stigma, not being, in the end, you are counselor. In the end, and if that's the one, that's great. Then you push, you're excited, and everything else. Um, and just the excitement, that's great. Okay. Who's responsible in the end is the director and everyone else and the people in charge. But you just make the tool, you have the tools, um, have all the necessary, you know, channels that they need to make the transition smoothly with all the, there are a lot of people here, right? Different cultures, and you want to make sure communication is great. Especially teacher, we're going to talk about the teacher here because, it may be, for example, the signature in the morning, which class can get the signature, why did you get the signature, you know, in the sense of the teacher needs to talk to the student and refer to the principal, obviously. Um, it may be a signature to a trip or whatever. Um, okay. Um, and it's pretty, maybe it takes seconds, right? Okay, hello. Yes, it's communication. You become, and that's part of the excitement which is given. You know, you have that. Okay. So, uh, don't forget that kind of, um, that kind of opportunity. Also, what do you get out of it, which is an important question. Okay, what do you get out of it? Maybe it's the opportunity for you as a counselor, all this work and all this excitement and everything else, and motivation to do maybe your research, to do maybe um, something for you. Okay, maybe you want to work on something, um, in particular, in career counseling. I don't know. Maybe you want to work, I don't know, in an NGO afterwards, or putting on your resume or whatever. But no, it's more like, obviously on a resume, but it's more like, what do I get out of it? Important, because in the end, you don't want to lose, right? What you're doing. In the excitement, you don't want to lose yourself in the role and what you are doing. Okay, so make sure that you're all organized and everything else for you, not pushed, basically. And uh, it's normal. This is a great motivation. They push, and their parents is normal, right? Great, but you're not pushed, basically. To maybe something at the quick counselor you feel uh, is not that great. Like, for example, oh, he didn't get the signature. It's okay. No, you're overexcited. No, okay. Obviously, you're going to say you have to go by everything because you are a quick counselor, and you have to go by whatever is. Uh, you'll be surprised, right? Whatever is there, because usually when parents and students and all together have something else, sometimes small pieces make a big difference, and um, you don't want that to happen. Okay, that's what I'm getting here. And number two, don't forget that it's important for you to focus on small details, like I said, and also to focus on um, when that happens, that there's no kind of push, not not you, but there's no kind of push or anything else to any kind of segment, which is important as a counselor. You make sure the teacher is comfortable, the student is comfortable, the family is comfortable, and the administration is comfortable. That's your. Okay, so uh, you know, now you'll be surprised. Yeah, so the administration is also comfortable. Okay. So for example, maybe the administration is not comfortable to do such a new kind of workshop for you, then that's great. Okay. You can't say anything. Now, obviously, musicians are comfortable in the sense of um, uh, the musician knows himself, basically, right? This is what's important for rescue council. You don't lose that you're in the end of council in the sense of you know yourself. You're not imposing, basically, not because you don't just stay side, okay? Which is important in culture and language of free counseling, just simple, nice. For a musician, usually, yeah, basically, it's just for, especially for school. But if the school environment is actually leaving it to you, or not leaving it, in the sense of, you're pretty flexible and everything else, then, and maybe it goes to the character of the musician. You feel like, okay, I don't know, you feel like the administration will be, um, I don't know, will not be cooperating with you on this subject. You know it. Sure. You're overexcited. Finish. Maybe you can go, but you wouldn't be surprised. You're not going to push it. Okay. So maybe their budget is not for this transition you want to do. okay, program. Then um, uh, then obviously it won't be fun. Um, and just move on. Maybe you can do other things. And what's important is that the administration knows that you are a counselor, not a director, not a teacher, which is really important. And be part of the, had questions or no, there's no problem. In the end, you can counsel, you know what you are, but in the sense of, they don't push you to maybe take a role that is not for you. That's one of the things they have to, the excitement have to look at ethics and morals here, right? In other words, not organization, but ethics and morals. In the sense of the institution assessment, is that my responsibility as a counselor? Um, Maybe it's not. Okay. So then you just make sure that it's clear. In the sense of for the ethics and morals, maybe the parents never talked to you about an issue with the son. Okay. And the administration believes they should talk to you. So you just have to make sure that there's a balance between the administration, parents, and parents on other administration. They want to. Maybe they don't see there's a problem. Maybe they see, that goes back to you, and um, you know, uh, goes also to culture, right? I mean, the culture of the school, like I said, is very stern. You have to come. Maybe they're not stern. What do you think? And it goes here: ethics, morals, organization. Okay, so with all of this, do you see with the different things here? I'm talking from the free counseling perspective. Obviously, there are a lot of different things here in the counseling world. There's the parents, the children, students, school, and we're talking about from middle school to high school. We didn't go to university or to other afterwards. Um, but it's very important. Okay, so it's an important factor when we talk about foreign language and culture. It's family, and I chose fear because it's a simple case of how that, it's not minor actually, but how that factor can change for a career. In career, you want an independent, especially in high school, independent student or independent person. In career, you want to, this is part of the identity, high school, but you want to see as a person, what do you think in 20 years you will be where? Okay, that's an important question. It's part of ethics and morals organization. Okay, not only a student of high school, right? And that's important for the student to look at it, that they are not the student, they are coming here as the person. So um, you as the person, Sam. Hi, Sam. Okay, so now you're 18. I want Sam, not Sam in uh, in high school. Okay, um, Sam in 20 years. Where does Sam see himself, for example? Okay, so now some people they have stigma from such questions, and it's like I said, if you're counseling, it's pretty open. You can say I'm not talking about it. Okay. Um, okay, that's great. So what do you want? I just want to come and I have a question on this university. Okay, right. Okay, you're not imposing, you know. So it's really important counseling, in schools, especially, of universities, yes. Okay. So this is important. Okay. Um, If you have any questions or comments, please ask me. I believe this topic is very important. I will talk more hopefully about family because it's an important topic. Counseling probably differs on the culture. Many people don't even see it, except for the spouse and children, and even that they see it as, you know, yeah, they don't see others, no. Others see it in their life, which is also, usually care counseling, independence is very important. Okay, it shouldn't be it's you should not think about your mother, father, or spouse or best friend You should think about yourself here. This is you. That's the base. Okay. Afterwards, yeah, because it's really easy about your spouse, your children. Other things, fine. Okay. So that's what's important, right? Because, okay, great. Maybe because you're in high school. Afterwards, university, you shouldn't. It's you, okay? It's really important for career in general. Career. Okay, so so this is an important part um, of career. Okay. Now there are environments where it's purely the family. That is different. That's a very different case. Here you would have to try to do a transition or reiterate this so that you would tell them always this person will not have a shot in the real world. Okay, which is important. It may not be they find a difference, but just to be on the safe side. Okay, maybe they want child to travel and to go, which is not wrong. Now, you can, you'll be surprised. They may be with him all the time. Here's a different world, right? But no, they want him to be in. That's different. Okay? And then you would have to look at the student in a different way. And the student, maybe it's the first time after a month you would meet the student. Okay? That's a kind of extreme case, obviously, but it's there, unfortunately. Okay, so obviously that's very extreme, and it's there. Okay, yeah. Well, obviously career first. Okay. Um, and um, yeah, so it may not be they want them. I don't know. They just to make sure the family knows. Yeah, yeah. Independent means that this or they will not. That factor does play a role of independency from the family. For marriage afterwards, for being strong and stable. If did you work on that? How was it? Why am I not talking to him or her? Is it I don't know what's the maybe they are pretty independent that or maybe not. Are they clear from the beginning? You know. Anyways, this is an important factor in family in career because if family is not actually a role maker, it's really important, especially university finishes. It's not there. It's not there at all. Okay. Except if it's like on a personal level, you come to a counselor, you choose to come and there are family issues, whatever, here, but it's not there at all. Okay. Um, I'm talking here in the average. In the average, different than spouse and children. Okay, so this is really important. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments, please, please leave here and please look at my career library. And have a great day. Bye.